we are live.
Hello, Josie Haines. How are you?
I am great. I'm actually very excited for this because honestly, when you reached out, I had seen one of your videos on LinkedIn and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, this is so cool. I don't know if he knows who I am. So then you randomly reached out to me and I was like, oh, he knows who I am.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know what I'm doing even. Like, it's pretty funny. We get to talk about so many different things. So Josie and I have certainly been in the same room at the same time. We were on the team at the same time. I'm pretty sure we would have been in a high pressure review meeting where I'm
Oh,
like,
I'm
hey,
sure.
Josie, can we do this thing? And like, Josie's really the only smart person in the room who can tell us. And we're just like, she's like, yes. And then we're like, great. And then we can all go back to our highly stressful existences otherwise. So there's so many things that like will be new to us on this call, I think, about each other. So I'll talk about what I've been doing on this call, on this series. And then I want to hear what you've been doing. And then we can start at the beginning. Like, how did
Sounds
we even
good.
get into the same room at the same time? So, wow, this is awesome. Like, there's a lot of people here who want to hear Josie Haynes talk. And I'm going to let them help you with all the questions in the world. This is pretty funny. Yeah. So I started in October. I had never used Substack much at all. In fact, I had been added to a newsletter by one of the people who invested in the platform and then just ignored it. And that's how most of most of the people I know, probably yourself included, got added to Substack. I left my gig in October because I just couldn't keep up with the venture backed space. It was doing too much, taking too much of a toll on me health wise. So I was like, hey, what do I want to do? And so I had a line item for write a book of essays, and I had a lot of stories about my time making and playing Magic that like I had never written, but I had taken notes for. I had done a couple drafts, and over time, like I had started putting a story out every like 3 months for my network, and they were like, "This is really fun," and it would make someone's day to have this memory of an impact that someone made on me. I went to the first pro tour with a guy named Tim McGeary. Tim McGeary doesn't play Magic the Gathering, never played Magic the Gathering, and he's just there doing his college freshman year homework with all these crazy people running around playing a card game, right? And so for 30 years, he's just had this weird story where he was at the first pro tour and it was the most baffling experience of his life. And so I just started piecing together this analog feeling project where you would go into a universe, a story that was from 30 years ago or 25 years ago, and it would take you into that time, and you wouldn't know what you would find that day because you didn't have a phone, you couldn't text, you couldn't use a website, we weren't connected yet. And so a lot of the ethos of alternate worlds is really to bring these different entities such that you couldn't expect what you're going to get from either an essay or from a Substack Live. No one, no one could guess that Josie Haynes was going to be today's guest du jour, and the folks coming in this afternoon are like just as like cool and interesting, but you can't really expect it, right? And so it's really about exploration and the fun of like doing discovery and putting yourself out there and the journey, I guess. So that's what I've been doing. And I was like, man, I know Josie and I were in the same place. Let's figure out how you got there and where your journey's been since, because you seem to be doing really interesting things. And I'm pretty excited for this chat. And now it is your time to soliloquy while I drink coffee.
Yeah, I got my coffee drinking in while you were chatting.
Easter egg for later.
Yeah, I have been so many things. So right now I am a leadership coach for engineering leaders and women in tech. So that's what I'm currently doing. How I got here. So I left Zynga after my second stint at Zynga in 2015.
You
Ended
went
up
back.
I did. So my mom passed away. I moved to Florida for 9 months to take care of my dad. Then once he was doing better, I moved back and Steve Klickner was like,
Oh yeah.
come join again. And so I joined Zynga for a year, worked on Central Tech. And so I ran the ads from the engineering side. That's what I did during my second stint at Edzinga. And then when 2016 left and went to Apple, and there I worked on Siri. I ran the Siri music team during the development of the HomePod. So
Very
added
cool.
30 new features to Siri Music while there, my team did. And then the other project that I ran was Siri on Apple TV. Actually Apple won a technical Emmy for the work that my team did while I was leading that team, which was pretty cool.
Awesome.
I also started Women at Siri, which has now turned into one of their largest sub-ERGs of women in AI and ML, which is pretty cool because when I left Apple, I wasn't sure if it was going to survive. So the fact that it has ballooned since I left was actually pretty cool to hear from somebody. My time at Apple was interesting. From the outside, it looked like it was insanely successful, but I
Mhm.
went through a huge period of imposter syndrome and
Oh,
burnout. And by the time I left Apple, I thought I was a terrible manager, despite the fact that people told me as I was leaving that I was the best manager they'd ever worked for. And I thought I was going to leave tech. So it's 2018, January. I left Apple, did not have anything lined up. I was like, I'm taking some time off. And I really got into journaling. It's really the first time in my life I gave myself a break. And I realized I didn't want to leave the tech industry. I just wanted to work somewhere where inclusion wasn't lip service. And
yeah, yeah.
at this time, Clink was running engineering at Tile. And so he hits me up. There's a pattern here.
No, that's actually like kind of how careers work, right? You want to work with people who get you and like you like working with. Otherwise, it's punishment, right?
Yeah. So he
I've been
hits
there.
me up. Yeah. So he hits me up and is like, the web team needs some help, Josie. And and at this point I was like, I don't want to lead anything. I don't even want a full-time job. I was like, look, I will come in 10 to 15 hours a week. I will see what I can do, but I'll be a dev. I'll go back to my dev days. I'll be a dev. If you're okay with that, that is fine. And he's like, sure, come, come do this. And so I
And
joined.
he's like this. He's crossed his fingers. He's like, and it will become.
So he's like, yeah, yeah, sure, Josie, just show up. It'll be fine. So I come. And I really, in the first 2 weeks, realized I had some serious PTSD from my time at Apple. Two reasons. The first thing I got brought in to do was fix a memory leak that the web team, they hadn't been able to figure out. It had been around for a month and a half or something like that. First week, it was Friday night and I had not fixed the memory leak yet. And I'm like, I'm going to get fired because I haven't fixed the memory leak yet. This is literally what's going on in the back of my head. I fixed it by the end of the second week and people were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Right. And I'm sitting here I'm going to get fired. And then the second thing that I realized was I wasn't getting any email at 10 o'clock at night. And I literally
Hmm,
thought people were excluding me from things because Apple and the Siri team had this culture where there was this unspoken rule that the engineering managers and all the TPMs would get back on and work from
yeah.
10 to midnight. And nobody ever said you were supposed to, but if you didn't, you kind of got looked down upon. And so I literally thought they're keeping me out of these meetings. They're literally just not sending me messages and the
Why
people
aren't they behaving in an unhealthy fashion? Like,
yeah. And I literally was like, they don't trust me. They're not including me. And then again, I tell Clink this and he's like, what are you talking about? And so that was, I kind of realized I was like, oh, okay. So I did well on the web team. Tile got a new CEO. They had also, right before the new CEO, had gotten a new head of HR. And I was doing really well and I was enjoying it. And when I had been at Apple, when I started Women at Siri, I had wanted to build a mentoring program and I designed the whole framework for it, but I wasn't allowed to start it at Apple because the VP of Siri at the time didn't believe in mentoring. Uh,
oh,
and I was
yikes.
actually told to not start it. And so I had told the head of HR, like, I have the whole framework. It's all designed. Like, would love to start it here. And she's like excited. She's like, yes, let's do this. And so this new CEO joins and is like, so we've got some contractor like really invested in helping us build a good culture. She doesn't work here full time. And we have this platform engineering director role open. Like, why are we not like bringing her in to do this? And so, Clint hits me up and he's like, do you want this job? And I was like, at this point, it had been, I think, like 6 or 7 months after I had left Apple. I was feeling a lot better about myself and like the whole situation. And I was like, okay, but I need to talk to the CEO first. I was like, I'm not taking the job without talking to the CEO. And
Right.
so I say to him, so I meet the CEO and I say to him, like, look, like, I'm happy to join, but I need to make sure inclusion's not lip service. I want to help run your DEI programs. I want to start this mentoring program. And I don't want to be dinged for doing this work,
Yeah.
like from my career. And he surprised me. And he said, I promised my wife and daughters I was going to make Tile the best place for women to work in the Valley. So I joined. We delivered on that
It's a good
promise. Like
answer.
it was a great answer. I was like, all right, let's do this. So delivered on that promise, started, thrived at Tile, created an amazing culture that to this day, I still have former coworkers reach out and say, I really miss like what we had at Tile because it was pretty awesome. And then COVID hit, and we were going to scale the team. And I really wanted to get a role as an executive. And so I saw this opportunity to, because we're about to double the engineering team. And so I put a proposal out like, hey, we've got two big technical initiatives. Clink is awesome at like the deep architecture stuff. Let him become the CTO, focus on the architecture, and then have me be the VP of engineering, and I will scale the org and grow the team and redo how the team's working because we're very much built for like a 20-person engineering team and we're about to scale to 60 people. And
Hmm.
as you know, when you hit that scaling number, things start breaking. And so we
Oh,
had to
for
change
sure.
processes and things like that. And so the CEO was like, sure, sounds good. I mean, it took like 6 months of back and forth. I don't want to dismiss that it just like magically happened, but 6 months of back and forth. Yeah. Clint got promoted to CTO. I got promoted to VP of engineering, basically doubled the engineering team in 4.5 months, scaled everything while keeping our inclusive culture. Um, and the reason I even thought about making this proposal was I was working with a coach at the time. And she's like, you
Oh,
could
that's
do
cool.
things like this. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And so it really made me reflect and be like, I love what I do as an engineer, but I'd love to help other people thrive in their career this way.
Hmm.
And so I stuck around for a while. Tile then got acquired by Life 360. And I decided, you know what? This is actually a great time for me to go start my own coaching practice. And so I left Tile/Life 360 in July of 2022 and started coaching. I focused initially on women in tech. About 6 months ago, I started working with engineering leaders more broadly, just because 90% of the women in tech I was working with were engineering leaders anyways, and I love working with engineers. So I was like, hey, let me just focus on working with engineering leaders and well, I'll get both. And but also the thing that I've been doing for the last a little under 2 years was my hackathon project at Tile had been to build like a business version of Tile for asset
Cool.
tracking.
Nice.
And we were initially going to build that at Tile, but then the acquisition happened and Life 360 is very consumer focused. But one of the co-founders of Life 360 who ran his own company, um, was still on the Life 360 board and thought the project was interesting. So he hired Tile's old chief business officer, who was the one leading it from the business side, to run the project. And he brought me in April of 2024 to actually build it. And so we launched that last May. And actually, I'm actually announcing this on LinkedIn like tomorrow. I actually just left SmartPin last Friday to go focus back on coaching again full time because I missed doing that. And it was very nice. It felt very much like closing the chapter of like watching my hackathon project from 7 years ago launch, get some major customers, and build an awesome team. And I feel like I left it in a very good place. Like the last thing I did was we all went to Vancouver and we did roadmap planning for the next 6 months. And I kind of just brain dumped everything of like what it's going to look like. And it was a very nice like closure, and it's a
The
little
job is
bittersweet,
complete.
but
Yeah,
it also felt like it's complete and I can go back to my mission of like helping engineering leaders thrive.
that's awesome. You've done everything since you left Singa.
I have done many things.
I'm
I
like,
have done many things. Yes.
what? Yeah, we'll get to the next question that I want to ask in about 30 minutes, but I will ask it. I won't forget.
Okay.
Um, all right, let's go back to the beginning. Like, are you a gamer? How did you get up? How'd you get to Zynga? Like, I know how you got onto Cityville, which I'll tell that story in a minute. But
I
like,
am a
you were
gamer.
stolen in the night. Yeah.
I am a
Okay.
gamer.
Okay.
I've been playing games since I was 5. On my Atari 2600, which is actually still
Nice.
in the garage of my house. It has not been turned on in like over 10 years, so I do not know if it still turns on, but
What
it
was your
is sitting
go-to
in
game?
Chopper Command.
Copper Command. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
mean, there were a lot of
had,
great hits
and
on
then
that machine.
yeah, and then I had a Commodore 64 too. And then my first PC, I was addicted to Carmen San
Yeah, it's a
Diego.
great one.
Um, and then during college, my I went to Princeton, and I remember, so I went to school in 95, right? So it was cool. It was a T1 connection. It was like, oh my
Oh
God,
yeah.
this is so fast. And I ran our Quake server
Oh yeah.
for school. Like, so we played lots of Quake and Doom back in the days.
Descent and
Oh,
Heritage.
and
Like,
Descent. Oh my God, I
yeah,
love
I love Descent.
Descent. Descent was awesome. And then I played WoW for 10 years, between basically launch and like 2015. And then I took a 10-year break. And then my best friend moved up to Oregon 3 years ago, and I had actually originally met him on WoW, but he lived in the Bay Area, and he had even been my roommate for a long time and stuff. But he was really bad at phone calls and texts, and he started playing WoW again. So I was like, I'm gonna start playing WoW again.
Yeah, it's
Because I can hang out with my friend.
how many characters do you have at like max level at this point?
Oh, so they just did this like remix thing where you were able to level a bunch of characters very quickly. So I think I'm
Hmm.
now up to like 10 level 80s
All
or
right.
something like that. Um, and then also, yes, in the 10-year period where I didn't play WoW, I was playing a lot of Civilization 6, like many, many hours, more hours than I most likely should admit on Civ 6, and then some Baldur's Gate 3. And I love Larian games like Divinity, Original Sin, like that whole collection. So yes, I'm definitely a gamer at heart.
You're making me want to ask. So there's someone on my list who works on WoW now, who's a big Magic fan, who's worked on games for like 15 years and worked at Zynga. After this call, I will finally ask that person to come on. One of my childhood friends, who's in the book that I wrote, the Alternate Worlds book. I didn't mention I wrote a book, but I've been busy the last 4 months. Um, and my friend Tronster, who I grew up with, like in the BBS days before going to T1 Access and
Hmm.
whatnot. He's worked it for Access on the Civ franchise for I think 17 years or 14 years or something like that. It's really weird how the universe works, but he's coming on I think next week. So pretty wild
That
how
is
everyone is
wild.
connected. Yeah.
Yes, I won't I will say I know they're trying to make Civ 7 better, but I bought it and I was very heartbroken at launch, and I have really not picked it up since. So
If you
there's
would like me to
that.
ask monster on the call such that he can be put on the spot. So whatever the problems are, we should talk. We should talk.
Oh, he knows what the problems are. The entire internet.
Just in case he hasn't heard.
I mean,
Well, let's.
there's this. It's funny. There's this YouTuber who's like a huge Civ 6 YouTuber. His name's like Spud McWhiskey is his like handle on YouTube, and he
Mhm.
literally like when Civ 7 came out, he had to switch games for a while because his like views tanked because nobody wanted to play the
Oh,
game.
that's heartbreaking. That's a heartbreaking, like, in this time and place too, like, studios are having a harder time.
Yeah.
That's
So
emotionally gut-wrenching from an empathy perspective on the game
yeah.
developer side.
Yes. So, I mean,
Okay.
I have much empathy because I suspect it was not the devs' decisions to launch it on every single platform, including VR, at launch day.
Wow. That's a lot of, like, confidence. You're like, "We're just putting it out there. I hope it hits." That's that's like 2,000 pain, like, in advanced years. You probably compound interest to the level of pain you receive nowadays
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, and I still want to ask the question, like, who's playing Civ on VR?
Who's playing VR at all? Like, I have a
Yeah,
headset
like,
over there, and I have the Oculus One. I had an Oculus 3, I think. I gave it away for a bar mitzvah or something, but,
mhm.
it does not get used ever.
Yeah. No, I have the Meta one sitting in my living room because I got it for free because I actually did a talk in VR during the COVID days, and so they gave me the headset. That was the last time it was used, and, I gave my husband for his birthday or Christmas many years ago the Steam, VR one, and I don't think he's turned that thing on in who knows how many years.
The funny thing is I think it's an amazing toy. I just never wanna use it, and now that we're using our eyes so much on screens so much of the time, the thought of using, even more screens to relieve my stress is like, woo, especially an eye-intensive one, right?
No,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Well, plus
mm.
the whole, like, fact that it's front balanced and, like, it's gonna cause neck pain also just doesn't do it for me. So
Did it Zynga happen to you, or did you choose it? Like, in my case, I was, like, acquired. So I was like, "This is not what I signed up for and is really weird and interesting, so I'll just see what happens." And,
so
but
this
a lot of my friends left
hmm.
early on.
So I worked at NetApp with, from 2005 to 2007, so storage company, right?
Mhm.
And Custatus had joined Zynga from NetApp.
Okay.
Clink joined Zynga from NetApp. San joined Zynga from NetApp. The joke was like, is NetApp going to give Zynga a cease and desist order? And
Just
even though
acquire
it's
them.
like completely a different, totally
They acquired
different
everybody else, like, why not NetApp? Anyway,
So I joined the joining Zynga bandwagon and joined Cafe World. And I actually joined at a very interesting time because
yeah, it's an interesting project.
I joined the week we took on Facebook, and the entire company pivoted to building our own internal social network. So I joined that Monday, and I
Yeah,
specifically remember this because Costadas takes me on a walk, and he's
good
like,
decision, Josie.
he's like, trying to be like, yeah, you might be working crazy hours for the next 2 weeks, but don't worry, you're fine. You'll be fine. But yeah, I think I worked close to like 60 to 70 hours that first week.
It's brutal.
And it was like the craziest time to join a company ever. But I mean, how many people can say we built a social network in like 2 weeks? So
They did do it.
yeah.
And, fortunately, like, maybe it was a leverage point for negotiation with Facebook so that Facebook
Yeah.
would do what we wanted for long enough for
I
us to
mean,
exit.
that was pretty much the plan. Yeah.
It's super impressive from a strategy perspective, and if you sign up to work at Zynga, then that's what you sign up for, right? That's a logic I
Yeah.
hear a lot from people who worked at Zynga. which I wouldn't had not heard until I left Zynga, but like you kind of sign up for that when you go to a hard driving startup like that, right? If you go to
Yeah.
Amazon and you're working in like a future facing part of the business, like it's going to be an extreme sport. And so you kind of have to choose it, right? It's
Yeah.
weirder when you're acquired into it. You have to like that's a weird sea
That,
change.
yes, like
Yeah.
how was that?
I mean, a lot of my friends on the engineering side left. They went to go to Twitter pretty early on, like immediately. Twitter and Google, they left after Zynga.com, that project. Um, and there's a story I wrote in the book about this the engineering leader for Treasure Isle and I. We were so burned out after like 3 months that we like, even though neither of us are like active drug users, we got marijuana cards just because we were like, something's got to dull the pain. And so, like, we went into this weird like place in the mission that I'm not like we gave our social security number to like a fake doctor, I think, and like nothing has gone wrong in the 15 years since. But we didn't know what we were doing, so we got like a piece thinking it was one dose, but it was four. So we just ate it, and then we walked all the way around San Francisco with big smiles on our face for about 6 to 8 hours, and we couldn't talk to each other. We just kept laughing the whole time. And so that's how we tried to get through. It didn't work. We stopped doing that after our lives felt like they were in danger. But Zynga drove us to go and risk our identities,
Yeah.
our social security numbers, with the level of stress that was induced.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to say, Zynga was both crazy, and I most likely drank way too much during my Zynga days.
Mhm.
And it was also the most like career growth time of my career. Like I went from being a software engineer to a director of engineering in like 2 years. Like
It's you also forge these relationships, right? You
yeah.
forge these relationships through Fire, the EP of Treasure Isle, and I like started the last company I was at because we knew from experience that we would work well together when you have extreme pressure and crazy
Mhm.
executives poking you with broads. Like you've survived that together. It's like, oh, okay, we know how to do this.
Yeah.
But it does create real friendships in a way that um, normal work probably doesn't, right?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, I just had lunch with one of my devs from my Cafe World days like 3 or 4 months ago. I just hit him up and was like, "Hey, I haven't seen in a bit. Like, let's have lunch."
I would say so. Cafe World's an interesting project. Like as you're there, it's making like $20,000 a day, and Farmville is making like I don't know $800,000 a day, something ridiculous. Frontierville hasn't come out yet, or it hasn't come out yet, but
Right.
it's on the horizon. And maybe Farmville's just at 300,000 a day, and maybe Worlds is the same as Mafia Wars. Um, and so you guys had like kind of an incredible team, full stack, and figured out how to grow the business to be like it was one of those businesses where it's like, is it going to get defunded because you can't make it profitable enough because the design of the game isn't good enough? And somehow, before you joined Cityville, we'll call it the Josie effect in this case. Like you go from like making 20,000 a day to like $400,000 a day,
So
right?
I can
There are
tell you
like
exactly how we did it, because
boom.
I was the engineering leader on the revenue pod, so I know exactly what we did.
Go on, perfect setup. I'm just going to drink coffee while you
I
tell us
was
all
just
of
like,
your
you just
secrets.
kind of set up like what a um
It was
so
really
two
impressive. Like Petville
so
couldn't do it.
yeah, so two things. One was when Clink joined before I had, he noticed that okay, we have our asset releases, right? Like every week we have asset releases, people go buy these things, and yet like our asset releases were always late. They were a mess. They were like fire drill. And it's like, why is this the case? It's a thing that goes out every Monday or every other Monday. Like, why is this not a repeatable process? So part of it was him like really like working backwards, like basically figuring out what it takes to build a repeatable process so that our assets were clean. And every week we built assets and got them out the door, and that just worked. So that was the first part. The second part was this whole idea. Bilal was the revenue PM at the time, and I was working with Bilal, and Bilal was great. Like he had ideas, but then he'd like, I have visions of this. Like we'd be in one of the conference rooms and he'd like start writing stuff on the board. And I'd be like, okay, I think this is what you want. And then he'd be like, oh yeah. So like, I take his big vision and be like, let us actually build something that is scalable, repeatable. And so this is where the no clean ferry came in. And so I've actually
Oh yeah.
built this whole system where we could have items like assets that were pretty on the board, but were actually functional. And I basically designed it as a system so that after I built the No Clean Ferry, which was the first one, we were able to build like 3 or 4 others of these. I forget what they were called, but it was like, and they were functionality. And we sold those for cash, right? For cafe cash. And so on the launch of the No Clean Ferry, we hit our first $1 million day.
Mhm.
And that was a combination of tying like sales, having the launch of the No Clean Ferry, and then a bunch of like an asset release all at the same time too. And then we came up with like, there was like 5 other variants of these like tools that helped you like not have to do like the tedium. And then we bring the No Clean Ferry back every 6 months or so. And that's how we hit our second $1 million day. Um,
Oh,
and so yeah, that is how we got Cafe World build up revenue.
yeah, it was pretty crazy to watch. There were other games like Fishville and Petville that like couldn't figure it out, right?
Oh, and then we had
And
catering. Catering was
that was a big deal.
that was the third leg of it, right? Was like we had
Social
these,
crafting.
yeah, social crafting. And part of the work that I did there was like we ended up having a lot of issues with trying to do concurrency then. And so part of the work that ended up in the like infrastructure in the central tech org and the storage service um was how to do like an inbox model so that you're not having concurrent issues when multiple people are trying to craft against the same
Oh yeah.
catering, because we were having tons of concurrency issues when we first launched. So part of the idea was actually like building this inbox model from a data perspective so that then it got processed in your inbox when you logged in, and then you weren't having like concurrent writes back to the database. So
It's pretty wild. Like we don't. There are a couple of questions that begets for me. Like one is like, like in an alternate world, like should there be a social platform that enables gaming in the way that Facebook did back then? And then the second part is like, we kind of take for granted how many weird problems with like the scope of games. There weren't that many games that had 20, 30 million players playing it all the time. And that led to like fairly innovative solutions
Mhm.
needed to like to solve those problems. So both of those things occur to me. You can bite off whichever one you want.
I mean, the on the tech side, right? I'll do the second one first, and then
Yeah.
remind me, and we can come back to the first one, right? So I talked about catering, right? That was
Mhm.
one really interesting technical challenge. The other one was another one of the big features that I helped design was we actually had literally a jackpot where once a day you basically got to like it was a slot machine basically in Cafe World. And honestly, we built it so the first slot, which was free every day, you were never going to win anything major. But for people who paid, you actually could get. And then like the goal was that at least once a day somebody won the jackpot, right?
Yeah.
And So I had to build a scalable system across millions of daily active users and figure out the percentages of like how to make this work. And that was like such a cool technical problem to solve. And I think that's the thing a lot of people didn't really realize is we got to solve some really interesting tech
Yeah.
challenges
Mhm.
that at that scale, and most games don't have those problems.
Yeah. I'm curious how the central org worked. There would be like this like band of superheroes from my perspective. You have like Nick Torno and Dutch Van Brott and
Yeah.
Arya Osman Far, like all these different like great engineers from the, I'm sure Klinkner, you Costadas would go to these engineering leader meetings and like how you all kept everything on the same page and iterating. Like everyone didn't have to do all the same things, but how to get to like
Mhm.
the right level of scalability such that like when it makes sense, you're building repeatable processes for things.
S
Like I don't,
so
yeah.
so the storage system that I talked about, right? The
Hmm.
inbox model for catering actually became the design for the central storage service, which then powered the first game that used it was actually Chefville. And then it powered basically all the Zynga games for the 9 years after I left
Pretty wild.
until they rebuilt it in Java.
It's a good investment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So much of Zynga felt like you're trying to figure out the right investments to make at the right time based on the profile of what's coming ahead of you. And that was pretty neat, right? That's
Oh,
different than like game
absolutely.
development had been prior.
And I mean, running ads was really interesting too, right? When I picked up the ads engineering team, I mean, I don't know if people realize like how tiny that team was, given the fact that I think 25% of Zynga's revenue ended
It's
up
extremely
going
important.
through ads. My team was less than 10 people. I had,
Wow.
I think,
Why are you making games? Like, just, you know what I mean? Just in terms of like scale, you're talking 1,000 people making games and operating games, and like 25% of the revenue is not supported. That's bonkers. Yeah.
it's like I think we had 6 people who were building the SDKs for
Mm.
iOS and Android. And web, right? Because we still had web at the time. And then we had, I think, like 3 or 4 people on the back end. And we had like 10 billion daily API calls a day. Again, talking about like fascinating scale to play
Yeah.
at. Like it was awesome. And yeah, it was like a tiny team relative to the amount of impact it had on the business.
Yeah. There's a lot of power with great power.
Great power.
Hopefully, it comes great bonuses in that case.
We did win the Green Beret Award when I was running the ads team, and I'm very proud of myself because we all got travel budgets. We got like $1,000 a person, and I managed to get the team to Hawaii under that budget for
Oh,
3 days
nice.
for like I think it was like a 4-day trip, and I figured it all out like in October. Like there was this weekend, it was like low season. I'm like, we are all going to Hawaii. So that was great.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, I was curious a while ago, like, did Cafe World ever get to do like one of those trips?
We
Zynga was
did
very.
one. We did one after my second $1 million day.
Where did you go?
Vegas.
You went to
It was
Vegas,
one of
yeah.
the Vegas trips. Yeah.
I would have preferred Hawaii. Like, I know it's like spoiled brat,
Yeah.
but like if you're burning yourself out and, in my case, like in health risk, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Vegas was funny. I just walked around with quiet people like on the side while everyone else was partying. It was like a leisurely walk through commercial chaos, right?
Yeah, the Vegas trips were always so surreal. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, stories I won't share because I don't want to get people in trouble.
That is generally the ethos, but like we'll see if anyone darkly tinged ever comes on and I can't stop them. No, please stop with the Willy Wonka of
Yes, not naming names, but I specifically remember we were at the Town nightclub in, I think that's the Venetian, and one of the engineering directors was trying to climb into the bathtub with the dancing woman, and the security was about to kick him out, and our EA basically begged the security guy to not kick him out of the nightclub.
There were people crying the next day for sure, and like they could not control their emotions. And this, someone thought this was good for team morale, and I don't know who, and I don't need to know who. I've never experienced this since. Like, there's never been a company where they're like, "Let's burn a lot of money on entertaining the humans." So
Or
it
just like
wasn't.
our quarterly parties, like that half the time ended up with an ambulance showing up. Like
Yeah,
that was also very surreal to
it's a
me.
pretty weird culture.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not like that in San Francisco today. Everyone's kind of
Yeah.
professional looking. You walk
Yeah.
around, and it's like I'm underdressed. I feel like outmatched by like classier tech people. Back then, it was like you could go to work in a paper sack and you would probably fit in just fine, right? So it's that's a weird aspect of San Francisco. I don't know where you're based now. I'm in Marin, so
I'm in the
um,
South Bay, so I'm down in
yeah,
Campbell.
yeah. It's all of the like weird degenerate 25-year-olds aren't there anymore, right? You're like all
Yeah.
these weird startup people that had this youthful, don't really give a damn energy are gone, and they've been replaced by polished grown-ups, which may be the same people. It's like
Right. Yeah.
they just got money and like now know how to dress well.
Yeah. The
But that
other
is
thing
a
I
weird
remember
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I remember about the Zynga culture, which was just surreal, was the fact that so many people ended up falling asleep in the office that the security guys started like literally walking around kicking people out in at like 2 in the morning because it was not you were not legally supposed to let people sleep in the office.
I remember Infinite Dogs. I just think, hey, you fall asleep, like someone's dog is going to come find you and ruin your night. There's some pretty bad dogs that I won't. I don't want to hurt any dogs' feelings. I'm sure they're all dead now, but
Yes.
um, no harm intended on
I
this.
especially
So
in the Cityville suite, I remember some
fuck.
dog issues.
I'm not going to swear. I am talking to friends of that dog's owner, like at various points in this series, and I haven't brought it up. You know who I'd love to bring on here? Teresa Johns. Like that would be the
Oh, the
person who couldn't
Teresa's.
control herself.
Oh
She
my
would
god,
just
Teresa would
talk
be
dog.
amazing. Yes.
She would talk dog all day.
Yes.
Yeah, she would be amazing. She's on the list of people that one day, when she's ready to, she's an interesting one because she knows so much and doesn't wish to do harm.
No.
But can she control herself on a web video
I don't
podcast,
know.
whatever it's called? I don't either. And I want to make sure that she does this at a point where it's safe to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I always joke that, my friends are like, Josie, you've worked with so many companies. And like one of the things I did at Tile was I was a like partner engineering director. So I like integrated the Tile technology into a ton, like pretty much any company that you can imagine that would want to integrate with Tile, like I met with and spoke to. And so my friends always tell me like, Josie, you have a tell-all book in you. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't write it until I'm like done with the industry because
yeah,
I want to be able to be hired by people.
I didn't write about Wizards of the Coast until 20 years later, right? That was like when it's an antique. That's when you can write about it. So you set it on your calendar, make a Google
Yeah.
invite, or
When I finally retire fully from tech, I can write the tell-all book of working with like all these crazy companies. But yeah, not till then.
yeah, yeah. There is like a point at which you must be pragmatic.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I am kind of curious. Like it was an interesting time in gaming. Obviously, Facebook was like, we don't want this gaming parasite on our
Even though we're
platform.
basically who got Facebook to grow. Like, I mean,
I
that's the
agree.
whole irony of it. Like, Facebook wouldn't be where Facebook is today if it was not for Zynga.
Yeah, I think that we Yeah, it's an interesting one where that game paradigm just never existed really afterwards. There are mobile
No.
versions of experiences that harken to it, but like the social extreme social nature of that gaming type like hasn't really resurfaced, right?
No, I mean, you still have MMOs, right? You still, I mean, WoW is still at
Yeah.
millions of, daily active users, but there's not that many games that they outside of like a few MMOs, like we're not talking about the DAU we used to have. And it's not the casual game aspect of it either. That
Mhm.
I think that was the really unique part is we're talking about people who wouldn't consider themselves gamers playing what was literally a very complex system to build because we did have 20 million daily active users.
Yeah, I have a theoretical question for you that I don't know the answer to, but would you rather have these folks playing games like Farmville in Cafe World or using TikTok or Instagram? Which one is better for society? Or I mean, are either good for society is another question, but like,
I think
what,
I'd
what would
rather
you pick?
have them play games.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's essentially where that attention has gone, right? It's
right.
like people shovel information in your brain. Some of it is innocuous and some of it is nefarious, and then we elect funny people to office. But anyway, we've
That's a
made
whole
weird
other
decisions.
conversation.
We're not looking to do harm to ourselves on this call, so let's move on. Um, so yeah, you come to Cityville because we stole you in the night. Like the kids
Yes.
got stolen by the Cleveland
I was trying to
Browns.
build Chefville because, yes, I was the
Oh
first
yeah,
engineer on Chefville. I was 1 month into my trying to build Chefville, and I got stolen. Yes.
yeah. So Steve Parkus was the head of Cafe World, and
Yeah.
then he was basically told, "You must run Cityville now." And
Yeah.
there was a Game of Thrones, but not from like the sake of people wanting to be the head of Cityville. It was a Game of Thrones where like more like Henry VIII, right? Where it's like off with his head. It's just like killed 11 different GMs, resurrected one, I think twice. And so Steve Parkus was really the longest GM of the studio who kind of
Yep.
stabilized things and got us rolling in a direction. And he was told by Steve Chang, I remember being in the meeting, the roadmap meeting, he was like, ask for whoever you want to be on this team to stabilize things. Because Cityville had a really weird dynamic where it was designed in such a way where it would have died in 3 months if we didn't figure out how to extend its life with live ops features that actually had the
Mhm.
right systems in it, right? And so he brought over 4 engineers from the cafe world in Sheffield orbit. Really awesome people. Like he knew who to ask for.
Yeah.
And Josie was on the list for sure.
I
Um,
still remember to this day. Do you remember Clink's milk cartons? Do you remember this? Okay, so remember how milk cartons
oh,
back
that's
in the
cute.
day had the, like, missing kids on them, right? So he actually, in true Clink fashion, like, created milk cartons with, like, the pictures of the 4 of us and was
Oh,
like, "These are have you seen the have you seen picture?"
that's really sweet. I we all need a clink in our lives.
We do, so
Yeah, it was an interesting project, Cityville, because it was probably like 40 or 30 people around the time that it launched, and it had such a successful growth burst that each team had to donate like a sacrifice basically to do this, right? I was
Yep.
like the first one from the treasure side. I had worked with Alex Lay at Serious Business before. So like Serious Business over time got rated and moved over. I think Siki Chen was in Central and related to Cityville too. But then Cafe World, you get Pablo Paniagua and
Yep.
um, and the engineers, but like every team got rated. Poker with Brian
Mhm.
Chu and Frontierville with Arjun and whatnot. So it's really interesting to see a team go from like 30 or 40 to 140 in the course of like months, right? And figure out
Right.
how to orchestrate that. How was it on your side? Because like I only saw you at these weird meetings where like Pablo and I would be like, yes, no. And it was really weird, right? Everyone
I
hates
mean,
that, but yeah.
it was surreal. I think so. There's two big memories I have of, or a few big memories. I sat next to the one of the other people who got brought over from the Chef Cafe world was Jossie.
Oh yeah.
And myself, Jesse, and Jess all got seated at desks right next to each other, next to Dutch and Reed. And it was just like the weirdest combination because somebody would say Jess or Jose or something, and all three of us, like, we didn't know which of the three of us you wanted, but like we'd all turn and look because our names were so similar. I'm like, I don't know who decided that the three of us should sit right next to each other. And
It's a
then
great way
Dutch
to share context. You'll all know what's going
yeah.
on with each other's work at all times, right?
And then Dutch and Reed were just like, I was like, this is crazy, like sitting next to these two. So that was like, I have that just like vivid memory. And then my other vivid memory of City was when we did I think it was 6 releases. It might have been 7 in one day. And I was there till 2 in the morning. It was 2 a.m. And like literally this was one of the times where security is like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm still working."
Get out of my face, protector.
And I was just like, "Yeah, you can do 6 releases in one day. I don't recommend it."
That was
I
a
don't
hard driving
recommend
team.
it. Yeah, it was when we released the little fishing boats off the pier. That was
Oh, that was
that,
cool.
that was that day. Yeah.
Like tourism, like there were so many different features. It's such
All
a
I just
weird.
remember was it had to do with little boats off the piers. Like that was
I have no.
that's my
Yeah,
vivid memory of it. So those are, but and I mean, like many Zynga games, we played hard and worked hard. So yeah, and then what was really weird though is like when I went back to Sheffville, which was I think I was in city for around 5 to 6 months.
uh,
And then I went back to chef. I think it was 3 or 4 months before launch. And I basically came back to, I mean, and it's surreal from my perspective because like I was the first engineer on it. We had acquired another game company that ended up being a lot of the devs on Chefville. And that had happened literally like the week I had gotten pulled onto Cityville. And then I
nice.
come back to the game and now like 6 months has gone by and a ton has been built and things like that. Um, and then 3 months later, we're supposed to launch. And so, like, my job ended up being like, how do we get this game out the door? Like, that was my job. Like, my job was like, let me pull everything together to get the Chefville out the door. And I mean, the sad thing about Chefville was the engineers built an amazing quest system, which might have been honestly a little over engineered in engineer fashion, but it was designed like it was really great. Like designers could like basically go in, build whatever type of quests they wanted. It was so scalable from day one. And I always thought that that would end up in central tech, and it never did. And that was one of the things I was very sad about with
Wow.
Sheffield is we designed like this amazing scalable quest system that then kind of given the life of Sheffield kind of was way overbuilt for how long the game lasted.
Yeah, it was the end of the Facebook
Mhm.
era. Essentially, it was like
It
one of the
was.
last successful
Yeah.
games. Right. It was a very talented team, and Farmville 2 had come out and hit really big. I remember Chef like having a good start. Like
Hmm.
I don't know how much money Zynga was making at that point, but it's in the millions of dollars a day, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
contributing like I don't know 300,000 a day, which is a totally
Hmm.
good start. But Facebook was definitely turning the tap off.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so there's nothing you
Yeah,
can do.
because because I became director of engineering on launch, because then Clink got moved to Central Tech. And so then I ran Chefville on the engineering side for around 6 or 7 months before then we moved it to India. So
Is there anything you do differently, like in your first Zynga stint, like looking back, or anything you've evolved? We've all evolved a ton since that window. Like, what would Josie today like do in retrospect, based on how that experience went?
um I mean, I think I partied a little too much during my Zynga days, but I think we all did. I think we all needed some balance from
Mhm.
the from it. I mean, I've become much more outspoken than I was back then. And if you had told me back then that I was going to leave the corporate world and become a coach and grow a huge following on LinkedIn and give like 100 talks in the middle of a global pandemic and all of these things, like I would have been like, you're crazy. I'm not gonna like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think just looking back, I try to always look at things as I don't have any regrets because I was the person I was back then.
Mhm.
I think honestly the biggest thing was during that time of my Zynga time was when my mom's Alzheimer's was really
No.
bad, and I was also taking my dad's mental health wasn't great and having to take care of my mom, and I was actually doing that kind of on the side, taking care
Jesus.
of both of them. They lived in Florida while I was here in the Bay Area. And I mean, I remember because I took the Zynga shuttle from Los Gatos to up to the city and back. And my dad definitely was having a few mental health crises. And I would basically on the phone, like on the shuttle home multiple times, would be like talking him down from depressive episodes. And I can only imagine what everybody else on the shuttle must have thought I was doing, like being pseudo therapist
That's
to
incredibly
somebody.
hard.
And didn't I was so dedicated to work that I didn't really give myself time to process like all of those emotions and all of the grief and just like and I think it really did kind of impact me for a few years afterwards. And reflecting back, I'm like, I really should have let myself process my emotions more instead
Oh
of
yeah.
just being like, I mean, the way I was dealing with my emotions was like, I'm just going to double down on work because that's the one thing I know I can do well at. So let me just double down
Those
on work.
emotions over here and make
Yeah, the
sure
emotions
that's
can go into a little box in a corner. Like they can go sit over there and
we just described the episode season 4 of Shrinking. We're going to be we're a special announce. We will be on that series with Harrison Ford and Josie Haines.
I actually, speaking of Shrinking, I loved the fact that they brought Michael J. Fox in
Yeah,
to
and
do the first episode as a cameo. So
I think
no
that
no
show is the best
spoilers,
show.
but
That's the
yeah.
best show. I in my like there are, I don't know what your top 5 are, but like Shrinking, I haven't redesigned it in a long time, but Shrinking is like really lovable from my
It is.
perspective. Yeah.
I love
It's like,
Shrinking. Shrinking's
yeah.
awesome. Right now, what I'm watching is I really liked the first season of The Pit. I'm actually waiting for the
Oh
whole
yeah, yeah.
second season to come out at one and like finish because I literally binged watched the first season and I'm like, I don't want there to not be the whole
You work like I do. Like you batch your work very intentionally. Like I don't want to do anything but write. Then I don't want to do anything but calls. And then I don't want to do anything but watch a full season of The Pit, etc.
Yes, so I'm definitely yeah, I'm one of those people who will be like, "All right, I'm gonna get this done and work till 10 o'clock at night," and then like I'm like, "All right, the next 3 days I'm gonna just peace out. I'll do my coaching calls. Like I'm good." Like I'm very much like that. I'm like I know when I get my energy spurts and my creativity spurts to double down on them, and then I'm like, then my body's like, "Well, all right, now go get a massage, go on a walk." Like,
It's good that your body tells you this. I'm still learning. My body has called my wife, I think. She she was like,
I
"You're doing
my
it again.
yeah,
You're
no,
doing the wrong thing again."
my body, like, I have learned, and maybe this also comes with getting older, under lessons learned, I've learned that if I don't listen to my body, it's like it gives the poke, and then it's like, if I don't listen to the poke, then I get the sledgehammer. So I'm like, "Okay, if I don't want the sledgehammer, I better listen to the poke."
Yeah. I had a point last week where I was like, all of a sudden, I was having so many different thoughts. I was like, my brain is not sufficient to process all this information. I started like, I wrote down what I was thinking and sent it to other smarter people and was like, and I got like coached through like, oh, I'm at this weird inflection point where I could do a bunch of different things and there's so much work that can be done as a creator. I'm sure you feel this all the time. You're like, holy cow, it's an awesome time to be creating.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you will drown if you drink, you go too deep down the well. And so it's really important to have these windows where you're reflecting and not just doing everything all the time, right?
Oh,
There's
yeah,
so
100%.
Yeah, you end up being incredibly interesting, which I expected, to be fair. But like, which direction, which fork do you want to go down? We're playing Slay the Spire, and there is, talk about what you're doing from like, from the coaching perspective and what you've been doing there, because it's been really cool to watch you go. I think that's an area we could go next, or we could talk about being a creator and what that's like, because you have like a captive audience more than we've ever had before, by the way. Like 38 people is a lot of people listening in, and they're all creators too. And so I think all of us are kind of, I never see people talk shop. I'm sure they do, but I don't pay attention, which is my own failing. And so like,
I'm happy to
so
talk both because actually
yeah,
they're
let's
kind
do
of
it.
interrelated,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Because so so I mentioned earlier how I got into coaching, right? I started, I had worked with a coach. I saw how powerful it was, and I really wanted to help other people do this.
Hmm.
And like that part of my brain feels so rewarded by this, right? Like we've just talked about my career background. I've obviously launched lots of successful products between the stuff I did at Zynga and Apple. Like products I've built have mostly and tile products I've built have most likely been used by like hundreds of million, if not billions of
Billion. I mean,
people.
Cityville hit billion, so you're
Right.
you're
Yeah.
you're in the billion club for sure.
and so and yet some of the stuff I do can feel so much more emotionally rewarding on the long term. And it's just like because I can so directly impact people's lives in a positive way. Um, and so, but again, if you'd asked 2018 Josie, who had just left Apple, and was feeling imposter syndrome and alone, I would have been like, "Uh, that's what you're doing? I have no idea how you got there, right?" And so
Mhm.
when I left Apple in 2018, I realized that I had actually not done a very good job of building my network. And I had worked at a lot of places. Obviously, like my Zynga experience was all before this. So I knew a lot of people, but I wasn't really keeping up with the network. And that was part of the reason I ended up on reflecting back, I had felt so isolated and
Oh
alone.
yeah, that's real.
And so I said, I want to intentionally build my network. And so that's part of what I started doing then. And I also, like I said, part of my philosophy back then was around I want to retain women in this tech industry. Over 50% of us leave tech by the age of 35. I thought that
Crazy.
was a crazy statistic. Um, and I was like, I want to change that. And so I said, "Screw my fear of public speaking, and I'm gonna talk about this." And so I actually submitted a talk to Grace Hopper that I never thought was going to get accepted, and it did. So in late 2018, I gave the talk actually to 2 audiences of 500 people around retaining
Awesome.
women in tech. And, basically for the 5 years between leaving Apple and starting my coaching practice, I grew a small following on LinkedIn. Like by the time I left Tile, I think I had like 5,000 followers on LinkedIn. I mean, friends of mine at that time joked that I somehow knew everybody in the tech industry, even though I technically don't.
Seems impossible.
It is impossible, even though I do. I'll tell you a funny story related to that in a second here. But it really was it was really getting over my fear of like putting myself out there for talks, right? Because at the beginning, it was a ton of rejection. Like the first like year and a half of applying to give talks, like I was definitely getting rejected more than I was getting accepted. But then some point during COVID, and especially because I'm doing this like in the middle of COVID hitting too, um I things switched and people just started finding me and hitting me up and saying, "Hey, do you want to give talks?" And so during the like 2.5 years of COVID, I gave over 100 talks and podcast interviews because I'm just like, I'm just going to practice. I'm going to do this and I'm just going to keep putting myself out there. And so I grew a following. And then by the time I left Tile in 2022 and started my coaching practice, like I grew it pretty quickly. And like in 9 months after I left, I was able to basically replace my base salary as an engineering leader doing coaching.
That's awesome.
And and so but I really credit the fact that I had been very intentional about building a network, being willing to put myself out there and just showing up on a daily basis. And just you never know. Like you literally never know who is going to tune in and listen. And so yeah, I have gosh, I have so many funny stories related to this. So I was at the engineering leadership conference last year, in September, and they hook you up with like somebody to do one-on-one networking with. So I meet the guy I'm doing networking with at like 10 in the morning at the conference, and every 5 minutes or less, somebody comes up and gives me a hug. And this happens for
Oh,
like
wow.
35 minutes. And
Hmm.
he turns to me and he's like, "Are you famous or something?" Like, I'm like, "I just know a lot of engineering leaders." I'm like, "It's okay." Then the next guy who comes up is like, "Oh, hi, Jossie. Do you remember me?" And it ended up being somebody I had worked with at the very first startup I was at 25 years ago. And he
That's
recognized
pretty
me.
wild.
And then so we say hi, take some pictures. Then the next person who shows up says, "Are you Jossie?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "You don't know me, but I follow you on LinkedIn and I
Well,
love your content." And then the guy next, the introduction's like, "You do know everybody. You are famous in this sphere."
I have been paying attention. I have a checklist. All of the
Yeah.
people seem to be on it.
And I mean, it literally, like, I hung out with the guy for another 30 minutes and it kept happening. And it's just like, it's not like I ever said, like, I need to meet everybody or I want to become famous in this industry. A lot of what I do is like, I love just putting myself out there. I love helping people. Like, that is my goal, right? Is to help people, right? I'm not doing this because I want to become like the next the most popular influencer of the world. Like, that's not my jam. My jam is I want to help people and I want to build a tech industry that actually, I joined this tech industry in 99, middle of the dot-com boom.
Yeah.
Because back then, naive little 20-year-old Jossie was sold on tech is going to make the world a better place. And it hasn't really played out that way.
I'm glad I didn't have to ask.
And, but part of me, I'm not naive enough to think we're going to solve all world problems, but part of me still does want, like, tech to do good, to do better for this world, right? And I feel like as engineering leaders, we have a lot of power in helping shape that. So if I can help engineering leaders thrive, like I can help that overall mission. And so like for me, it's just been about how do I help people? How do I show up? Like how do I keep showing up?
Yeah, I think so. One of the book topics that I have written down, which I felt in my own life. So I had this meeting when I was working on Magic the Gathering where the creative team wanted to put humans on cards. We didn't use humans as a type. And we thought about it. I don't care. Like, I'm like, if you want humans, it's probably fine. Like, I trust you enough and also just want to play the game. So I'm like, it's funny. A few of us, like even the senior EP of Magic the Gathering now, is like, that's not the detail that I care about. But like we argued about it so much that like I just wondered why we didn't care about actual humans. We were fighting over putting humans on a card, and so the undercurrent of what this book would be is like kind of navigating how hard it is to actually help people. Because when you enter your career, that's not like how most organizations are wired. It's somewhat of a privilege to be able to help people, but it's also like how should people at the start of their careers be thinking, hey, this is my journey to actually get to a point where I'm helping people. One other story I'll tell before I'll return it back to you. So after I worked on Pocket Gems on, a mobile game, it was a lot of fun to work on. I was like, I really want to help people. And so I went to a mental health startup, which did really well. But all I did was help build technology to make customers happy. And meaning like the companies that were
Mm-hmm.
essentially paying for the service and tailoring it to their needs. And it didn't check the box at all. Even though, good was happening, like there is this certain like human need that many of us have where we want to help other humans directly, right? And that's like what we need out of life to be happy. And so I think that's a book that I really want to see exist in the world. Um,
I
anyway,
love
that's
that. That's an
yeah.
amazing, like, I would definitely love to see that book because yes, I think there is so many, there is so many people I coach that have been doing this for 20 to 25 years.
Uh-huh.
And they come to me and they're like, from the outside, you look at my career, you look at what I do, I'm successful, right? Actually, I actually have this great story. She was a senior director at a very large, well known tech company, had been there for, I think, close to 10 years, was thriving. And she hits me up and she's like, Jossie, I've heard a little bit about your story. I would love to learn more about you. And so I shared. I shared about leaving Apple, not having any clue what I was going to do next, but just taking off. I mean, and one of the things I tell people is like, I left Apple, and when I went to Tile, like total comp wise, I most likely took like about a 50% total comp hit. And it was like the best decision I ever made in my life. Right. Like, and then I also told her the story of like, leaving Tile and starting my coaching business and she was like, yeah, I really want to figure out what's next. And then I didn't hear from her for 6 months. And we both got busy. And then hits me up 6 months later and she's like, Jossie, I really want to talk to you. And I said, yeah, let's hop on a call. And so she hops on the call and she's like, Jossie, I just wanted to thank you because you telling me your story changed my life. And I was like, wow. So it gave her the courage to quit her company, the company she was working at. She started her own startup, which is what she really wanted to do. She was coding day in and day out. And she's like, even though I'm not getting paid a penny right now, I am the happiest I've been in years. And then she said, and when I was able to share your story with my daughter, her daughter had just been starting in the tech industry and had kind of been against her leaving her full time corporate job. And she's
Mhm.
like, when I shared your story with my daughter came back to me and said, Mom, I get it. Like, I support you on doing this. And that is being able to make an impact in somebody's life.
Yeah, that's huge. It
Yeah.
impacts many people's lives.
Yeah.
In that yeah, each of us has like something that will make us happy in terms of what we do or how we manifest or whatnot. That's probably the long
Hmm.
term, but and it takes a long time to figure out what that is and how to get there, and even develop the skills to do that thing. Right? It's the converse of the deep dark secret. It's not. I wouldn't call it desire. It's just purpose or who you are, right? There's
Yeah.
the deep dark, like it's weird that it's not more transparent from birth. but like the coal turns into a diamond, and that part is kind of like somewhat in there from an earlier age, right?
Yeah, but we also need to go through the journey too, right?
Oh,
Because I
oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
be able to do what I do today if I didn't have all the experiences that I have, right? I mean, one of the reasons I'm able to coach engineering leaders as well as I do is because I've done everything from start a startup and launch a successful product to working at Apple and running a team there to like watching the stuff we talked about earlier about scaling at Zynga, right? Like the breadth of all of those experiences is pretty unique in then being able to help other people wherever they're at in their careers. And so I wouldn't be able to do what I do today if I hadn't had all the ups and downs, right? Because like my career has certainly not been perfect. Like I always tell people, it's like it is not this up and to the right story that like Instagram makes everybody's careers look like.
Oh, not at all. Yeah. Yeah, the question I was going to ask you, I said I would earmark for 30 minutes later is appropriate now. What's on your bucket list from this point? You've done a lot of really awesome, interesting things.
Oh
What's
my
left?
gosh. I wanna do a TED Talk.
Okay,
That
that's cool.
that
That's
is
super cool.
that is on a I did like a pseudo tech talk through this other organization, on actually the whole topic of retaining women in tech, but I wanna do a real a TED Talk one day. Um, as I said, someday far in the future, there is a tell-all book.
Yeah, sure. Put it on your calendar now when you're ready.
There is in another 20 years. There's a tell-all book about like what it was like doing this whole thing. I want to meet Cal Newport. I love his stuff,
Okay.
and like I would love to have dinner with Cal Newport. Like
You just put it out there.
that is on my
Energy
list.
is
If
in the
anybody
universe. Yeah.
knows, so anybody knows Cal Newport, I would actually love to talk to him because I love his books and the fact that he is a computer science professor who also talks about deep work and slow productivity is completely my jam.
Mhm.
And I want to figure out how to like I love the one-on-one work I do. Like
Mhm.
I love getting deep with folks, but I also want to scale what I do. So figuring out like kind of what that next big thing is in my kind of coaching world, and I do think, you know, I love using the engineering side of my brain, right? That's part of the reason why in the last 2 years, I was also a fractional engineering leader while running my coaching business. And so I know though, I never want to stop the coaching side of things, but I do feel like there is a startup in me somewhere like that I need to build, and I don't know what it is yet. And so there's some idea it's going to somehow be related to my coaching or something, but my friends all joke that every time I meet with them, I mean, I actually just had a call right before this, and I like was like, this is the business that I think you should build. Like I have conversations like this all the time when I meet with someone and I'm like, oh, and actually that's the business that you should build. And so my friends are like, you have like so many ideas. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm not gonna build them all. Like I just like I'm happy to
Mhm.
share the ideas with the world because like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be building them. So
Yeah, whenever I meet someone who's not sharing ideas, I think they're never going to get there, right? That's a
yeah.
weird facet. Like that's something where I can share you my doc after this, but I have like a so what am I doing? And you end up having these like really interesting paths available to you that you have to figure out which one's the right one for you and who you are. Um, it is an interesting journey, but like you develop your own process for trying to figure out how to make these things happen. I'm kind of curious if you have coaches still. Like I just like picked the people I wanted to inform me, and I was like, "Hey, you're informing me," and they're all like happy enough to do it. But do you still have that? You know, like
Oh,
when you're
yes.
going off
So,
solo? Yeah.
absolutely. So, I have the very first person I hired. when I started my coaching practice was my business coach, and to this day, I am still working with her. Um, because it's like the strategy side I kind of have down. Like I know the strategy. I know how to build companies, right? Like that's not the hard part. The hard part is the mindset stuff. It's the shit that like just comes up and blocks you and you
Oh
just
yeah.
need somebody to talk to remind you like, oh yeah, you're doing that thing again that you do, and having somebody who can lovingly call you out that you just trust is
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
And so to this day, like I'm like, I am more than happy to pay her on a monthly basis because I'm like, you're the one who keeps me sane and on track.
You keep those people as close as you can by and large, right? I think
Yeah.
the that's an undercurrent of the book, which is really like who are the people who moved the cheese such that you could become the person you
Hmm.
wanted to be. And so even when we're talking about Zynga stories, it's really like who helps you open up, right? That's kind of who do you pay gratitude to after all these years because they helped you figure it out because of that dynamic you're talking about. You said it better than I've ever said it, but I've always like wanted to say it, so I thank you. Um, are there any like people you pay like a special gratitude for moving your cheese is the way I use the metaphor, but you're like, okay, moving, telling you the thing that like you needed to hear that moved you in the direction you needed to move that you wouldn't have been able to do yourself so easily.
Well, I mean, Clink, it definitely
For
comes
sure.
top of mind there.
Hmm.
I mean, and we're
Hmm.
still friends to this day. We had dinner like 2 weeks ago,
Very
right?
cool.
And, I mean, I know I specifically have spoken to other women who went through the whole Zynga experience at the same time that I did, who had very different stories of their Zynga careers and definitely struggled a lot more.
It was a weird
And
environment for
yeah,
that, for sure.
and so I am very grateful to him for not just there, but also like during Apple. I actually remember I got we they had connected me with a coach, and part of the experience at Apple was I got a 360 review. And I was having some challenges with some team members, and they had put some things in the 360 review that were very hurtful to me. And I basically like kind of freaked out and was like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." And I didn't feel like I could trust anybody at Apple to kind of talk through this with. So I specifically remember like calling Clink like crying and was like, "I need to talk to you." And I go to his house. He lives in Palo Alto. And I go to his house one night and he like just like helps talk me down from the ledge of like despair that I was in. And it's like having those people in your life is amazing. And then I think, and I also think Custodis too. Like he's
Yeah.
part of who convinced me to join the crazy Zynga world, and my career certainly wouldn't be where it was today if it
His whole
hadn't been for that. Yeah.
his whole brand is saying the hard thing, right? He's like
Yeah.
and arguing it really loudly and well, right?
And again, speaking of people who you're still friends with, like we were literally just talking on LinkedIn yesterday about like when we're going to get together and catch up again because we haven't chatted in a while. And so yeah, it's these folks who've been there for the long haul. And then also my business coach is amazing and I love her, and she's totally not a tech person, which is exactly what I need from a business coach. Because, like I said, it's like the strategy side is not what I need somebody to be talking to me about. It's making sure that the mindset is there, and then the executive coach that I had worked with back during Tile that really showed me like the power of coaching, right? And you asked me, right, about like, do I still have a coach today? And I truly believe, and like, hey, this is my coach philosophy, right? Like, if you're selling coaching services and you don't have a coach yourself, you're kind of not aligned with your own like thing you're trying to sell. So that's a bit of my philosophy around that too.
That all makes sense. Yeah, my thought is so one thing we discussed right as we were entering Substack. So Josie is not a regular Substack user. She has her own creator flow. And I am interested in what you really want from your creator flow and what you want in like creator platforms, because I think we're both different types but related power users. Like we want to be able to do things that are much more efficient than you can do with like the simple point and click type platform. Like, how do you think about the tools that you have today, and like, what do you really want the world to migrate to?
Yes. Okay. So most of my creator world is on LinkedIn. I think I'm close to 10,000 followers there at this point. So
Nice.
that's my biggest platform. Last year I dabbled in potentially starting a YouTube channel and decided that that was way too much work. So under going back to bucket list things, starting a YouTube channel is most likely potentially there someday.
I,
It did not happen.
I have a
Uh,
YouTube channel because Substack lets you upload to YouTube. And I was like, well, let's see what this button does. And
well,
so
okay.
that's been funny. But yeah,
To be fair, I do have a YouTube channel, and
I'm going to look it up now.
every podcast I am on, like I do publish it to my playlist on YouTube. But I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
I certainly don't have a huge following and a huge number of subscribers, and I'm not doing the like YouTube strategy thing,
Effort
right?
is required to do all this well, right? Like
A
that I
hundred
really
percent.
1,000%. I will like, I will up that bet because it's insane. And I totally get where you're coming from.
And this is one of these things. Like each platform is to do it well. Like, yeah, you could hire some agency to repurpose your content and push it to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all at the same time, right? And you will most likely fail at all the platforms. I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
that's the nature of it, because each platform needs very different things and it has very different ways of how to succeed. You know, I will talk about LinkedIn, right? Like LinkedIn drives me crazy because for being a technology company, the technology that they provide just by default for people using their platform is terrible. Like I'm just gonna call it out. It's terrible. I'm like, there's games in LinkedIn Mobile. Like
I
that
do.
drives me insane. I'm like, who decided to build games in LinkedIn Mobile? I'm like, go put those devs to
We
building better
know,
features.
we know people who are on the product team making those games, and we should question them. We should bring them on. You and I can both bring them on. Nick Pizarro and Helen Sims, like who you work with closely, right? Bring them on, and we'll like put them against the wall. Like your service was meant to connect people to have better careers. Why are they dorking around on games?
And I think,
Mhm.
I mean, LinkedIn itself is a really interesting platform, right? And I think it's still trying to figure out what it wants to be. And I mean, recently, like organic reach on LinkedIn has tanked.
Mhm.
Um, Organic content on LinkedIn, unlike, on Instagram, you can definitely go post a very sales type post in your stories and or in your feed as a reel, and that will take off, right?
Yeah,
In LinkedIn, anything that sniffs that you're like trying to sell something
they're
and your
scared to
reach
death.
just tanks.
They're scared of you.
And
Yeah.
and now with the fact that they've got boosted posts and things like that, organic reach in general has gone down. And so really, LinkedIn organic is a nurture platform. And then you really make sales by doing direct messaging to the people who like your stuff, follow you, comment. So it's a very manual process, right?
Oh, yeah.
And also, your organic reach depends on how many other people's posts you're commenting on now as
Oh,
well.
interesting.
So
Okay.
it's this very fascinating, like, if you really want to be doing LinkedIn well, you're posting organic nurture content like 3 to 4 times a week, right? A personal story post, like a value post and a client result post. And then you're commenting on other people in the space. Which for engineering leaders, it's not like there's a lot of engineering leaders posting content on LinkedIn. I mean, there's a ton of
Mhm.
AI content these days. That tends to be like 90% of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to find people who are posting about this stuff. So that's another one where it gets a little challenging. And then you have to have this whole process around sending DMs and messaging people.
Yeah. No way.
And if you use any of the automation tools, your account will get dinged and your impressions will be decreased.
Yeah. They don't yeah, it's, they don't want any one human to become too powerful.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is interesting because, yeah, they don't really want people to become viral. And here's the thing, like, my goal is not to become viral, right? Like, I don't, why do I do this? I do this because I want to grow my coaching practice and I want to help people, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
because I want to become the world's biggest LinkedIn influencer. Like, to me, it's funny. Like, visibility to me happens as a byproduct. Actually recently, so I teach, I'm a guest speaker at this Lehigh University course every year.
I
Um,
actually graduated from Lehigh University.
oh, nice. So one of my friends is an adjunct professor there and she teaches a women in tech course.
Cool.
And so 2 weeks ago on Thursday, she had me on. We talk about why diversity matters. We spoke about, these are all university students. They're asking about like, okay, what do I need to focus on getting into the tech industry? So I talked about like, hey, focus on the human centric skills that AI is not going to be able to replace these
Yeah.
days. And I did not realize she was a Forbes contributor too. Like I did not know this about her. And so Friday night she texts me and she's like, "Hey, I know you are not officially on the record for Forbes. So I'm happy to remove the quote if you want, but here's the link to the Forbes article I quoted you in," right? Like I didn't pitch to get on Forbes. Like, I mean, it's pretty damn cool. I was like,
Super cool.
it was definitely one of these, like, it'd be cool someday to write something for Forbes. I was never expecting somebody would randomly quote me in a Forbes article. And I share that because it's like, I'm not intentionally going out to get this, like, massive visibility. Sometimes it just happens because I keep putting myself out there. But yeah, I do this because I care, right? Like I said, obviously, like, hey, we live in the Bay Area. I always also joke that Bay Area mortgages are expensive. And so I also can't be doing this for free, right?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Anytime startups come and offer me equity, I say, like, while I would love to help until Chase starts taking equity for my mortgage payment, like this isn't going to work for me.
For sure.
But it's really like, so yes, I want to grow my business, but the reason I want to grow my business is going back to the motivation. It's like, I want to help people, right? I get more visibility. I can help more people. Like that's why I do this.
Mhm.
But yeah, the tooling is hard. And it's a balancing act, right? Of when do you make the trade off? Like, what is enough? Like, what is creating enough content
Oh,
for?
yeah.
And then if you don't own your audience, what happens if your audience gets shut down? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
what if you
frightening.
accidentally get blocked? Like if I got blocked on LinkedIn tomorrow, like I'd be like, oh, like this is not no bueno.
Yeah, that
And
part's
so
pretty frightening.
yeah, so that's a lot about what I think about is like how do you get to the point where you own your audience? I think is important. Getting your audience off of some of these large platforms onto your own newsletter, right? I mean, it's one of the reasons. So we were talking about this right before we started going live. So my newsletter right now, it's tiny. I think I have like 170 people on my newsletter. So it's not very big.
Mhm.
I've been running it on ConvertKit. I've also not put a lot of effort into trying to grow it either. In like true honesty, right? It's yet another thing on the to-do list. Um, but yet in the back of my head keeps being like, I want to get more people onto the newsletter. And one of the reasons I actually haven't moved to Substack is I'm like, okay, but I don't really own my audience as much, right? Because I mean, I guess you do still have direct access to all of the emails and stuff, but it feels a little bit more like they're still like you're getting a lot of the visibility from like them sharing your content. And I'm also not a big Substack. Like I read a lot of newsletters on Substack, but I've never really like dove into it. And so part of me has always been like, does it feel cleaner to own it fully on something like ConvertKit, right? And I don't
Yeah,
know
I
the
think
right answer, right? Like I don't know the right answer.
yeah, Substack is pretty unique. Like you can download your data for both your posts and your all the content you've created and for all the lists you've created, and they encourage you to. Like it's part of their offering where they want you to be able to move around and like own your identity and your audience as much as it makes sense. I would say you would probably do very well on Substack growing organically, whereas when I started out, I hadn't even been on the internet for like the 15 or 20 years prior, other than in walled gardens. So I was posting stuff that I had posted to my network that's quite niche to me, and like it didn't connect. I'll put it that way. Um, and so it's been interesting going down this journey of like what feels like it would be something people would really benefit from doing that I would also want to do. Um, and I found Substack to be a good tool to that end. Like I have
Well, and
enjoyed it.
I didn't
Yeah,
know and I didn't know we could go live on Substack, right?
it's
Like
super
this
cool.
is
Yeah.
awesome. Like this is amazing. That we can just go live on Substack. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of the things that I'm going to be considering later this year because it feels like a much less heavy lift than going and doing the whole YouTube thing well.
Yeah, I think YouTube's a very different thing. Like most of my
Yeah.
success comes from getting lucky. Like my friend Brian liked one of like recommended or suggested one of my things like out of nowhere, and I didn't ask him to. He just did it, and it was like, wow, that was good. And that's the kind of thing that happens where like I have like big brothers and sisters that like essentially pull me out of the dregs. Albert Burkett, I don't know if he's here, but he did a collaboration with me early, and he has a pretty big channel. So it's like a different networking capability. I think if you were to choose two platforms to work on, I would guess I like YouTube and I like Instagram for sharing, but I like YouTube and Substack because they play really well together. You
Yep.
can up and because those are the two audiences you're going to want to care about. Substack launched a TV app, um,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting and similar to what YouTube's trying to do, but giving you a different slant on it where you can have a deeper connection with an audience. And so those two feel like Substack is more constrained on how growth usually works, but YouTube is like very good for discovery by and large. But they
Yeah.
play really well together. When you look at the functionality, you'll see afterwards, you'll see all these clips that were auto generated, and you can use them to whatever end, and that feels pretty valuable to me.
A
Like
hundred
that's yeah,
percent, right? Because like I used to pay Riverside when I ran my own podcast to
yeah,
do that. And so I'm actually excited to just go test out Substack from a creator perspective. And yeah, I think you do need to have like going back to like platforms and things like that, unless you have a team, you kind of have to pick a primary
oh
platform.
yeah,
Right? It's like, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. I post and I mean, basically, my YouTube growth has recently just been like I've been guesting on a ton of podcasts. And so people will find me through podcasts that I've guested on because I've been on a few big podcasts recently. And so that's how people find me on YouTube. But my main thing is like I post there. Somebody might find one of my things, and that's awesome. But I'm not like, that's not where I'm doubling down right now.
yeah,
I've also had this like love-hate relationship with LinkedIn for about like around at the peak time when I got super busy at SmartPin. I also was in this whole like, okay, I don't care about LinkedIn. I just am not going it's not helping me. It's like terrible. It takes a lot of effort. And then in the last like 3 to 4 months, I've been like, I'm going to give LinkedIn one more shot at this, like, let me see how LinkedIn goes strategy. And so we'll see. I treat everything as an experiment, right? But like I said, I've got like over 9,000 followers on LinkedIn. So it's hard to be like, I'm just going to completely give up on LinkedIn. But if I can use it to move my network to something I own more, like that's, again, kind of the goal.
One, I don't work for Substack. Like I did. And two, it reminds me a bit like you could potentially store up value in these different platforms. And as in with like Cityville or Cafe World or Chefville, like they may have reactivator mechanics that like
Hmm.
juice your happiness when you return, which is interesting and probably likely. I
Yeah.
hadn't really thought of it before. I have an Instagram account that was dormant for a year or two, or like I don't really have personal reason to use it anymore. But I was like, all right, I have this creator account that Facebook required me to create to be able to advertise the book that I
Hmm.
was working on. And so I have this weird creator page, and it's requiring me to have an active Instagram creator account too. It was like the most annoying situation for me because you're a creator, you want one
Yeah.
platform. Maybe like you have a little buddy and like a YouTube, and that's enough. Like
Hmm.
you have one thing that you want to focus on. But Instagram, like we had a video go, it's almost at 2 million views now. One of the reels that we've done, and that was fun. And I think that like the trust that you earn on these platforms does endure somewhat.
Yeah.
And so that ends up being like equity that you can leverage for a later day. And if they have a reactivator functionality, that's good too. I hadn't really thought about these things before, but since you're on both sides, you're on like the Zynga side where you're thinking about this stuff and the creator side, you are bringing out new ideas in ways I did not anticipate coming into the
Yeah.
space.
And I mean, this is one of these things, right? Like I mentioned, in the last like 3 or 4 months, I've been on a ton of podcasts. And I keep thinking about the fact that, I like I said, I just left Smart Pin last Friday. And so and I was doing roadmap planning, which as you know is a time-consuming activity.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had a lot of time to promote the podcasts and things that I've done. And I was just thinking, I've got hours and hours at this point of reusable content. I can create clips from these things and publish them. These can turn into newsletters. This can turn into other content. And sometimes it really is a little bit of a getting out of your own head about like what's perfection going to look like and just being like, all right, I'm gonna try things and see what works, see what sticks, like see if do people really want to listen to me? How does this all work? And go from there.
Yeah. Experimenting is the most fun. Like,
Yeah.
we are all just monkeys pressing buttons.
Hmm. I mean, I
No
think
matter,
as a
yes.
successful creator, one of the biggest things, like my engineering brain is both one of my biggest strengths and it can also be one of my biggest downfalls in running a business because I just go into like, oh, and I can build this thing and I can build this thing and let me
Mhm.
optimize how this works. And then I'm like, oh, but I haven't done any of my sales outreaches in the last like 5 days. And I need some coaching clients right now after completely dropping my income level after leaving the startup I was working at.
Yeah, I'm still at like a startup fidelity on everything I'm doing. So it's like my friend Terry last night watched the last video I put out. He's like, this transcription could use some work. And it's like, the Substack tool automatically generated that and I pressed publish. But you certainly could get a team going to make a higher production quality thing. As a soloist, it's really tough. And that's a question that as you're doing this, you're like, man, there's more work I want to do than I can do. And like, how do you think about potentially even, dare I say it, scaling up a team? Like, so that you have the right supports for people who are like, I am not good at visuals.
Hmm.
It hurts me. People are better marketers by far. I haven't been on the internet that much. So just starting to think about, hey, what does this shape want to look like? Who might I want to bring in to help, have a little more brain power rowing us in a direction. That's a real thing too. That um, it sounds like you haven't had to do that, but could, right?
Yeah, and so I've had a few team members, and that's definitely been a rocky on and off thing. It was funny because I was actually just having this conversation with my business coach earlier this week, and she gave me a piece of advice that I thought was amazing. And because again, there's a million and one things you could hire support for, right? You can hire somebody to create reusable content. You can hire somebody to make your transcriptions prettier, blah, 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 right? Like the
Hmm.
list can go on and on. And you can then end up over investing because you meet somebody who's a great marketer and sells you on their like great thing that they do. And then you end up hiring all of these people who are doing all of these things for you, but is it actually moving the needle? And so
Mm-mm.
the advice she gave was, instead of thinking about this from like the thing they're delivering, start with, what is the result you're looking for in your business, right? Like if your result right now is, I'll give a prime example, right? My result that I need right now is I need more one on one coaching clients. That is the result I need. If I am going to hire somebody to help me with my LinkedIn, if they are successful or not ties to, is that actually going to get me more clients? If they are getting me more clients, then great. If I hire somebody to repurpose my content, but it is not actually turning into more clients, then I'm really wasting money, even if it looks more polished or things like that. And so I think that's where, as somebody who's running a business or even a creator, right? We're creating for a purpose, usually,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so, really starting with, what is the purpose? What is the goal? What do you want to do? And maybe it's not like you want to make money. Maybe it's you want to just impact more people. And so then it's, are the people you're hiring getting you more eyeballs, right? And so I think we can often try to think, okay, LinkedIn is going to do everything for me. Like this, even when I write a piece of content these days, I have to think about, okay, is this a nurture piece of content? Am I trying to nurture my audience right now? Is this a sales piece of content? Because you actually have to, like, if you start with the result in mind, you'll be more successful and you'll also make better decisions around who to hire to help support you. Because there's going to be, you can always make things better.
Mhm.
Right? You can 100%, like, there's a million and one different things that we could be investing in. And I think the biggest thing for me, like, I'm actually kind of running an experiment right now of, in the next 2 months, I'm like, I'm not going to build or change anything, right? Right now, my focus is to grow my coaching business. I'm going to keep doing my 3 LinkedIn posts and a week and making sure that I'm writing those in a way that increases impressions and people reaching out to me. I'm doing my LinkedIn outreach. And then, like, I am stopping my brain from like trying to build anything or change anything else. And I'm running it as a 2 month experiment. Does
Mhm.
this move the needle? Do I get more clients? Do I get the number of clients I want? Right. And then looking, okay, for the effort I'm putting into LinkedIn, is it providing the return I desire? And I think a lot of times we're like, oh, we need to be on all the platforms. There's so much FOMO around all of these things in some ways. And it's like, no, it's, if we double down on something, often it's like the consistency is what will get us to the result. But we get like 70% of the way there. And then we're like, oh, but this person just said this new shiny thing over here is what's going to like make or break us. So let's like go double down on this other thing. And then we start at A instead of the 70%. And if we'd just gone from the 70% and kept chugging along, where honestly sometimes gets a little bit more boring. So I know I'm an engineer. I love the 0 to 1. Like that is my
Yeah.
jam. That is what I love to do. But at the ultimate, like a business needs to keep thriving. So that's where I have to
Yes.
stop myself.
1 to 100 is its own, like, game,
Yes.
right? I
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
yeah, that resonates for me. I really want one place where I can manage everything,
Mhm.
and connect with an audience in the way that I like, and I tend to like to write. And I do enjoy these video calls quite a bit. It's interesting how much they give you energy instead of take,
Oh, yeah.
which which is pretty wonderful. Like those two venues feel like a great way to start. I think, yeah, it's interesting. I wonder over time if I'll get closer to the Substack team's orbit just because I'm getting closer to understanding what they're going after a bit better and was in a similar, I wasn't in the media space, but I was in the interactive media space just prior. So it's like, I do like this social, how do you build the right social connectivity to lead to like, the right type of society? That's a really interesting problem space to work in, and will remain so for the rest of
Actually, and
our
so
days. Yeah.
and that's an interesting one, right? And so, um I touched on Cal Newport earlier, and he has this really interesting thought, kind of around like he really talks about like social media and the pros and cons, and kind of how the fully algorithmically curated feed is part of the societal problems that we're having today. And he talks about though like these platforms like Substack, or going back to the old days when we used to have like BBSs, and it was like a bulletin board of like
Yeah.
similar people who have a similar interest, and it's not like this algorithmically curated content. Like that's what we really should be doubling down on, not these like algorithmic feeds that are focused on just like what creates the most impressions. And so like I really liked how he was talking about that. And so that's also the other thing that keeps being in the back of my head is like, how do I create a space like that where we can talk about these challenges more? Because I love coming on shows like this and other places. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I am much more somebody who's like, I could do this all day. Writing is much harder for me. So for me, whenever somebody hits me up and is like, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" I'm like, "Yes, I will happily
Yeah. It's
talk
free.
about whatever you want me to talk
Talking
about."
is fun as long as there's no work involved. Sounds wonderful. Yeah,
So,
which social network does it best? Like, which social network spiritually feels like what you want to see the world go towards, right? Maybe it's BBSs is where you would say, but like perhaps of what exists today, like what's the spiritual, like this is the best version of social connection that we have now.
I mean, I think Substack is trying to do it, right, with the communities under the articles. So I like that because you can kind of grow your own community, and it's not this algorithmically curated feed once they're in your kind of network, right?
Once you
Like,
figure
I
it out.
don't
Yeah.
I don't think that Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, like, they're all super going towards, and I mean, TikTok's the worst, right? I mean, like,
Jailbroken. Yeah.
algorithmic, like, so I think they're all actually kind of going in the wrong direction. Um, I think Discord communities is very interesting, right? And Slack
Yeah.
communities too, right? Is like it's these communities of people who are, because they're really the modern day BBSs, if you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
You've got
IRC channels that
yeah,
are hyper
IRC.
active.
Yeah, you've got these channels of people with similar interests that come in and talk about things that they care about. And then ultimately, we need to also be doing this more in our real world, right? I mean, I think that's the other thing too, getting back to the local community and finding people around you that are doing interesting and similar things that you care about, and creating local communities is really, I mean, we're in the middle of a loneliness epidemic in the
Oh yeah.
world.
Resonates
And
with me like holy, right? Everything you're
yeah.
saying is like strongly agree. How strongly? All of the money I have strongly, I think. I would bet on
Um,
that for sure being a good thing for everyone.
yeah. And I mean, here's the thing, like, this is easy, right? Like, I love, like, how likely am I to drive up to Marin? On a day-to-day basis, I maybe make it up to Marin like once or twice a year.
It's a nice
Like,
place.
and it's a nice place. I actually love Marin, but I think sometimes people don't always, I was on a panel the other day with somebody who lives in Oakland, and he's like, "Yeah, I know where you live. I most likely went there at some point in the last 5 years, right? The Bay Area is so huge. It's like calling somebody up and being like, oh, hey, do you want to meet up somewhere? Like, it takes effort, right? But there
Yeah.
is something also very powerful about getting people to connect in person.
Yeah. I think if like we talked earlier about how do you help people, I've had a couple of ideas here. It's like one, in some weird like storytelling conceit, like having a government office where someone is essentially like there's a group that's responsible for just interacting with everyone. Just like, hey, have conversations with people, and that's your gig, right? Just connect to humans and make it clear that they are cared for by other humans, no matter what, right? Having some sort of baseline just as a storytelling technique. If you just wrote like a short story, that was like a conceit that I came up with. But even now, if you were like, hey, we're going to have a Substack that's just about helping people and you're talking with people and you're essentially, you don't want it to be, no one should be harmed by whatever happens. But like this paradigm feels like a healthy one to like
Hmm.
do what you're describing, right? And building a community around humans who like, in men in their 50s are quite alone a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Um, Figure
Under
out how to,
bucket Yeah, actually related to this, under bucket list things that I didn't mention, actually this came to mind, is I actually have a really nice backyard. We bought our house like 4 months before COVID, and it's definitely set up for hosting events. And it's one of the reasons like I loved this house. Like I've got this like really nice backyard. There's 25 palm trees there. I could easily have like 30 people in my backyard, like 15 for a dinner type thing. And then COVID hit. And so
you have cardboard cutouts flown to your house of your friends and
and in the back of my head, I always keep telling people like I would love to be hosting like interesting dinners in my backyard when the weather is nice during like the spring, summer, and fall when it's not raining, and have like interesting conversations like this, right? Like that is also on the list because like yes, it's amazing having clients all over the world. It is also really nice when I can go have coffee with one of them
Mhm.
or other people who I just want to have interesting conversations with.
Yeah, it's one thing about Substack that I've always been curious to do, and I've said it numerous enough times now that I'm gonna plan to do it. But like we could take any of these 38 people and invite them into the call with us at any time, right? Similar to
Mhm.
Clubhouse. And so like having, four people chatting about a topic in that style that you're talking about is very doable.
Yeah.
But I'm a one person that so far I have like so when I started this thing, it was very much in the spirit you're kind of talking about. It's one, it's like an experiment to see, hey, what does this functionality even do? So I asked my friend Nate, who worked on Magic the Gathering with me. It's like, hey man, you're in Argentina. Let's just record some stuff and see how we like it. And then I asked Bradley Ross, who was on City Vote with us. Then I
Mhm.
asked some other folks who worked on at Wizards of the Coast with me, who I'm good friends with, and we're just like, this is fun. Like, and so it's like now it's like a list of 60 people I'm talked to and talking, and it's like surprisingly great to get to do this with everyone. And so, yeah, I think we still have a lot of good work to do to like help people
Mhm.
and connect with other people and
Yeah.
try a session with more than just two of us. Although this has been pretty wonderful
This has been fun. Like, we should definitely go grab Helen and have not that I wanna bash the thing that she's worked hard on,
for
right?
sure. I do not want to do any harm. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
Helen didn't start the fire. She just joined it afterwards. And it's probably a very fun thing to do, even if it's completely weird to the rest of us. It's probably working. Turns out no one wants to work and playing games is better than that. And if AI has its druthers, maybe we'll all just play games on LinkedIn all day and maybe that'll be a good world. Who knows? But Helen, if you're listening, you're cordially invited with Nick Pizarro to talk with us later. So I usually I've started ending with this question, which is a weird thing to say. You don't usually start an ending, but you're on a deserted island. You get to pick movies, games, books, or TV as the one medium you have with you on the island for the rest of your existence. Which one do you choose?
Books by far. Like, I
What?
love to read. I I read 59 books last year. Like
Nice.
I just I absorb books. It's how I get out of my head. So,
That's a lot of books. Which 5 books do you bring?
oh, that's a really hard
I
question.
know we end with it so that after 2 hours of incredible duress, can you even remember the title of a book?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
You have time. You have
Um,
time. Plenty of time.
what will I bring? Okay. So I love reading nonfiction. I usually read like leadership, business, personal development stuff.
Mhm.
And then I read a bunch of fantasy and sci-fi for the fun side of the world. So that's kind of my balance in the reading department. If I'm stuck on a deserted island, see, that's the hard part of the question because I would usually like if I could only pick 5 books in a world with other people, I would definitely bring a few of my leadership books with me because like
Mhm.
I have some go-tos that I always recommend folks. But I'm like if I'm stuck by myself, like
Yeah, I'm wondering a little bit if you need to have like how to coach the animals and the trees. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, what are the
I'm like
best books for tending to a garden?
I'm like, I feel like I need the books that I don't own, right? Like,
Yep.
how do I produce? Because like, I do not have a green thumb. My dad, he can produce like miracles in the garden. I'm like, I keep my succulents alive, and that like feels like a good stretch there. So I don't know. My bookcase is back here, so this is going to um I might lean more on the fantasy side of the world.
Okay.
And all right, let's see. I will bring Snow Crash. Snow Crash is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will bring Snow Crash that is very rereadable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I need to find the name. One of my friends just recommended this book and he told me it was hilarious. And oh my God, what is it called? I'm gonna look this up because I'm like, um, the series sounded great. There's something. Oh, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I
Oh
have
yeah,
not
it's fun.
read it yet, but I had a friend recommend it, and it sounded like it would be a great series to read. So I'll bring the first one, um, and we'll start there. And then hopefully I'm not like, why didn't you bring the rest of them too?
The good news is you'll have time to write your own like extensions of the story, right? If you
True,
want,
if
you
I
almost
want.
want to just bring like great first books things, and then you can reimagine them however you wish they had gone.
Well, that's why the next book, actually, along those lines, was going to be the first Game of Thrones book,
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, right? Because
Yeah.
that is an amazing series, and well, maybe
Yep.
someday
Could have
he'll
ended better.
finish it. Maybe someday he'll finish it.
Could have
But
ended it all, actually.
yeah, so we'll go there. I would bring The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, which I haven't read in a very, very long time. But I loved the series. And because I haven't read it in a really long time, that's like, it's one of the books that I'm like, oh, I would really like to read this. Um, And then on the nonfiction side, like I feel like I want to bring something by maybe like Brene Brown or something, like something that's like
Yeah.
inspirational. Um, Actually, Braving the Wilderness might actually be a very appropriate Brene Brown book to bring.
It makes a ton of sense given
given the deserted island thing. Yeah.
Yeah, your skills seem like extremely well suited to not being on a desert island.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
am not,
You didn't ask, "Do I have internet on the island?" Right?
yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. Do we have internet on this?
No,
I
of
assumed
course
we did not have internet on some
no.
deserted
You're
island.
basically just Tom Hanks, and you get a soccer ball with a face on it, and that is it.
So yeah, I think I'd like the fifth book, I'd go find some survival guide of like how to survive on one's own and like make fresh water and like I mean I can cook, but I don't know how to like go kill animals or
It's a
plant.
little funny that it's not your first book, just from a priority perspective, but yeah. Just a tidbit back, like, you are an executive coach. I've coached a little from time to time. That's the one I want you to start with the next time someone asks that absurd question.
Yes,
Survive
yes.
first. Survive first.
Survive first. Well, but here's the thing, right? I mean, this might sound a little morbid, but like if I'm alone on a desert island, like, and there's nobody to talk to, then like, kind of what's the point? Like, let me
Yeah,
just survive
ooh.
as long to like enjoy. Maybe it's some like great beach like Hawaii or something. Like, let me enjoy it a little bit. But like, I don't think my life purpose at that point is going to be to extend my life forever and ever.
You're like, "Give me the 5 carrots that make it worth it to have that 6th book."
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
There's a lot of power in that statement. Even we will not discuss it today. Well, I am really glad we did this. I think
I
it
am
wouldn't be a
too. This was
surprise.
so much fun. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah, I will bug Helen and see if she is willing to let us prod and poke her about her LinkedIn experience. But I am interested. Initially, I was like, I'll write a book about the Wizards period, and then I was like, maybe I'll write something about the Zynga period. I kind of expect that it wants to be a bit more like Doyle Brunson's Super System because there's so many different experiences. I don't want to just write my own. It might be more fun to include all these really impressive, cool, smart, funny, weird people into it, like the things that we took away from the experience, even if it's just one
Mhm.
essay or a slice of it. So I may reach out again about that because I think it would be cool for you to have an essay in it. But
That would be
um,
so cool. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have Zynga stories.
yeah, I just saw CT Chen make a LinkedIn post that was like about his Zynga times and what he learned from Mark Pincus. And it was like, I would just put it in a book. Why wouldn't you just put that in a book? Like, why aren't we just storing this up for posterity's sake? Now is the time, right?
Yeah.
Um, because I won't, in like 10 years, I won't remember.
Yeah. No, and I mean that's why I just keep writing notes of my like stories because it's just like yeah, at some point you're not going to remember all of them and there's definitely some great stories.
We will talk again.
Yes.
Well, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming
Yes.
on.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Jossie. Thanks, everyone.